Nobody talks about the cost. They talk about the advantages, the faster processing, the pattern recognition, the ability to see connections that other people miss entirely. And those things are real. But there is another side to a mind that operates at unusual depth, and almost nobody mentions it. The exhaustion of thinking too much and not being able to stop. The loneliness of seeing things others cannot see and having no one to share them with. The weight of caring deeply about things most people have already learned to let go of. The specific frustration of knowing exactly what is wrong and being completely unable to explain it to the people around you. If you have carried any of these and carried them quietly because there was no language for them and no one who seemed to understand, this video is for you. Researchers studying high cognitive function have spent years focused on what high IQ enables. But a quieter body of research has been asking a different question. What does it cost? And what they have consistently found is something most people with high intellectual capacity already know from the inside, but have never had confirmed from the outside. A mind that processes everything deeply does not get to choose what it processes deeply. It cannot turn the depth off. And living with that day after day, in a world that moves at a different pace and cares about different things, carries a specific kind of weight that is rarely named and almost never validated. In this video, I want to name 6 of those weights, not to define you by your struggle, but because the struggle that has no name is the hardest kind to carry. Struggle number 1. Your brain will not stop even when you need it to. Most people end their day and their mind follows. They close the laptop, they watch something, they go to sleep. For you, the closing of the laptop is just the beginning of a different kind of processing. The problem you were working on does not disappear. It follows you into dinner, into conversation, into the space between waking and sleep where it waits, patient and relentless, until you give it more of your attention. Researchers call this involuntary cognitive engagement, the brain's tendency to continue processing complex or unresolved material outside of deliberate thinking time. And the higher the cognitive capacity, the stronger this tendency becomes. What other people experience as rest, you experience as a different form of work. The processing never fully stops, it just changes location. This is not anxiety. This is not workaholism. It is the price of a mind that cannot settle for shallow, even when shallow would be so much easier. Struggle number 2. You cannot have conversations at the depth you actually need. Most conversations happen at a surface level. Weather, work, what happened in the news. Small observations about shared experience. And for most people, this is enough. It is comfortable. It is easy. It is social connection doing exactly what social connection is supposed to do. For you, it is not enough. And pretending it is costs something you cannot easily name. Not because you are arrogant. Not because you think you are better than the people you are talking to, but because your mind is running at a level the conversation is not. And the effort of continuously translating, of slowing yourself down to match a pace that does not feel natural, of choosing not to say the thing you are actually thinking because it would take too long to explain, is a specific kind of exhaustion that accumulates invisibly across thousands of ordinary interactions. Psychologists call this code switching fatigue, the cognitive cost of consistently operating below your natural register to remain accessible to others. It leaves you feeling drained by interactions that should feel easy, lonely in rooms full of people, and increasingly uncertain whether the connections you have are with the version of you that actually exists. Struggle number 3. You feel everything more than you show. There is a misconception about highly intelligent people that has done a quiet amount of damage. The idea that intelligence and emotional sensitivity exist on opposite ends of a spectrum. That the smarter the mind, the cooler, more detached, more analytical the person becomes. The research says otherwise. Studies consistently show that high cognitive capacity is closely linked to heightened emotional sensitivity. The same depth of processing that allows a highly intelligent person to see patterns others miss applies to their own emotional experience. They feel things at higher resolution, not louder necessarily, but with more information, more nuance, more awareness of what the feeling contains and what it means and where it connects to other things. And they feel the weight of the world more specifically, not the vague discomfort of bad news, but the particular shape of what is wrong, the specific dimension of what was lost, the precise cost of what is broken. This depth of feeling is not weakness, but it is heavy, and carrying it in a world that consistently mistakes this depth for fragility and sensitivity for dysfunction is one of the loneliest things a high IQ person quietly lives with. Struggle number 4. You are bored in ways that other people do not understand. Not the boredom of having nothing to do, the boredom of doing things that do not use what you actually have. The meeting that could have been an email. The explanation of something you understood in the first 30 seconds. The project that requires none of the thinking you are actually capable of. The conversation where the most interesting thing you could say is the thing nobody asked. Researchers call this understimulation. And for highly intelligent people, it is not a minor inconvenience. It is cognitively costly. A mind that is built for depth, placed consistently in shallow water, does not simply idle. It becomes restless, then frustrated, then quietly desperate for something that requires everything it has. And the tragedy of understimulation is that it is often invisible from the outside. You are not failing. You are not struggling in any way that anyone can see. You are simply slowly running out of reasons to be fully present in your own life. Stop here for a moment, because something needs to be said clearly before we continue. None of what I am describing is a complaint about intelligence, and none of it is a reason to feel sorry for yourself. What it is an honest accounting of something that is rarely given one. The world has a complicated relationship with high intelligence. It wants the output. It wants the insight, the analysis, the ability to solve what others cannot solve. But it is often uncomfortable with the full person that comes attached to those abilities. The person who asks too many questions, who cannot accept things at face value, who needs more depth than the situation offers, who feels things too precisely to move on as quickly as everyone else does. You were not given these capacities without cost, and the cost is real. Naming it is not self-pity. It is accuracy, and accuracy about your own experience is one of the most intelligent things you can do. Stay with me. Struggle number 5. You hold yourself to standards nobody else imposed. Most people have an internal critic. For highly intelligent people, that critic has access to better information. It knows exactly how good the work could be. It knows precisely where you fell short. It has an unusually detailed model of the gap between what you produced and what you are actually capable of, and it will not let that gap go unexamined. Researchers call this the curse of competence, the phenomenon by which greater capacity creates greater awareness of the distance between current performance and potential performance. The more you are capable of, the more clearly you can see how far short you fell. And for highly intelligent people, this is not occasional. It is constant. Every piece of work, every decision, every conversation where you said the adequate thing instead of the right thing. The standard is always slightly ahead of you, not because others put it there, but because your own mind placed it there and keeps moving it just out of reach. This is not perfectionism in the conventional sense. It is the specific burden of knowing the difference between what is good and what is possible. Struggle number 6. You process grief, change, and loss at a depth that is difficult to explain and even harder to complete. Most people move through difficult experiences in a relatively predictable arc. Time passes. The intensity fades. Life reasserts itself. They move forward. For highly intelligent people, this process is more complicated because they do not just experience loss, they understand it. They see the full weight of what is gone, the specific irreplaceability of what changed, the precise dimension of what cannot be recovered, and their mind, unable to accept incomplete processing, returns to these things long after the world has moved on and long after everyone around them expects them to have moved on too. This is not rumination. This is not being stuck. This is what happens when a mind that processes everything at depth encounters something that cannot be fully processed. It keeps returning, not because it is broken, but because it refuses to close a case it has not yet understood. So here is what the mental load of high intelligence actually looks like. A brain that will not stop when you need it to. A loneliness that comes not from being disliked, but from being unmatched. A depth of feeling that the world consistently mistakes for something that needs to be managed. A boredom that is actually the quiet desperation of a mind that is not being used. A standard that lives just ahead of everything you produce. And a grief that takes longer because your mind will not accept a shallow accounting of something that mattered. None of these make your life harder than everyone else's, but they make it harder in ways that are specific to you, in ways that are rarely seen, rarely named, rarely given the space they deserve. You were not designed to find this easy. Not the depth, not the weight, not the specific loneliness of carrying things that most people around you cannot quite hold. But you were also not designed to carry it silently. The part of you that feels all of this most acutely is the same part that sees most clearly, that grieves most precisely, that refuses to stop until it actually understands. That is not a burden in spite of being valuable. It is valuable because it carries the burden. And the fact that you are still here, still thinking, still looking for the words that match what you actually experience, is not weakness. It is exactly what your mind was built to do. Which of these 6 struggles felt like something you have carried for years without ever having a name for it? Leave it in the comments. Because someone reading your words right now has been carrying the same thing, in the same silence, and your honesty might be the first time they feel like someone else actually understands. And if someone in your life carries this weight quietly, share this with them. Because sometimes the most valuable thing you can give someone is simply the language for what they have always known, but could never quite say.